All right. Well, hi, everyone. Happy New Year. It has been about 6 weeks since we've been on the red bench. Feels like forever, but welcome back and thank you for joining us. I am Abby, the Executive Director of the Vermont Ski and Snowboard Museum and your host for this evening. The Red Bench Speaker Series is primarily virtual these days. However, you will find us in person from time to time, and that is likely to increase with each year. These virtual events are complimentary, but we still need your support. We are a nonprofit, and we need your help to keep this series going and continue our mission-driven work. If you haven't done so already, I hope you'll make a donation. You can click the link in your reminder emails on our website, and then as soon as I remember to put it into the chat this evening. And as always, your donation in increments of $10 enters you into a raffle for a pair of Darn Tough socks, which I will draw tomorrow. Additionally, I'll be throwing in a custom limited edition Scott Lenhardt water bottle made by our friends at Mizu. If you've already donated or you're a Red Bench Seasons Pass holder, you are already entered. And I want to thank our Red Bench Series sponsors: silver sponsor Scholler Textile, bronze sponsors AJ Ski and Sports, RK Miles, Sisler Builders, and our media sponsor Vermont Ski and Ride. And tonight we welcome back to the Red Bench Scott Lenhardt and Chris Copley. Scott is the artist behind the museum's newest exhibit, Scott Lenhardt, Artistic Contributions to Burton Snowboards, 1994 to present. For nearly 3 decades, Scott has created over 55 graphics for Burton. In this exhibit, you'll find over 100 pieces of art, from simple sketches to several full-scale paintings and nearly 20 finished boards. It's an incredible exhibit, and we hope you'll find some time to visit and check it out. Chris Copley is a 20-year Burton veteran as the pro team manager and US Open announcer at Stratton. Chris will be guiding tonight's conversation with Scott, and we'll learn more about Scott's work, his collaborations, and maybe a bit more about the diversity of his portfolio. I also want to take a moment to thank our exhibit sponsors. A tremendous amount of work went into making this happen. But first, thank you to our board member, Dave Schmidt, who was the driving force behind making this happen, from concept to installation. And a massive thank you to several exhibit sponsors for making it possible: Burton Snowboards, Killington and Woodward Camps, Darn Tough Vermont, the James brand, Mizu Life, Dosty Brothers Frame Shop, and Foley Incorporated. You will have an opportunity to ask questions tonight, so please type those into the Q&A box that you'll find at the bottom of your screens, and we'll get to those at the end of the conversation. And Chris, I now hand this over to you.
Wow, this is going to be a really fun night, because I thought I knew Scott's work, but there's so much more that I didn't know, and you're going to find this out tonight. There's a lot going on in the story here, but please come to Stowe if you're not from Vermont or whatever. Put this on the calendar. This exhibition is going to be up for a full year, and it's really worth it. I mean, for people who are just art fans, people who are really into the whole creative economy, which is something that I love about Vermont, is there are so many incredible artists that contribute art to, not just art for art's sake. It's art that ends up translating and going on to products, and really the appreciation of these brands and companies to look at artists and say, I need to take what their creativity and how can that enhance the products that we make. And now we're talking more like snowboard type of stuff with Burton, but Scott's work has translated into so many different realms. But snowboarding is like the springboard that really has got him, and brought his career to all these different places. Like, for folks that are fans of Phish, where do you see some of the stuff that Scott has done for Phish? He's done work for Nike and Adidas, but Mountain Dew, like seeing some of his graphics applied to product is very cool. Like, imagine walking into a convenience store and like, oh wow, there's Scott Lenhardt's art on a Mountain Dew can. That's pretty cool. He did this incredible calendar project called the 24-Hour Woman that we're going to showcase. His pet portraiture, you're like, what am I talking about? When you see these pets, they're like photo real, they're insane. And so his art is just really diverse. So what you're going to see in Stowe is mainly the graphics, the snowboard, the whole way his vision translates into really great art on boards. But there's his background of where he came from. We're gonna kind of get into that. And some of his art is owned by celebrities, and we're talking like Bill Murray, okay, and people like Chloe Sevigny and Parker Posey. So I mean, just name dropping a few things here, just because we kind of can do that. But anyway, Scott, yeah, I just wanted to say your work has been a part of my life for like 25 years. I've made a ton of money repping Burton Snowboards and selling boards. And you came up with great stuff, so thank you. So anyway, I want to read this one thing because, like, with Scott, he had to work with a lot of art directors, and these art directors say, "Hey, Scott, here's the project, here's the board, or here's the thing we want to do," and then he has to like kind of present sketches and ideas, and then they say, yeah, we'll sign off on that. But one of the icons in the world of art and graphic design on product is Michael Jagger, who owned a design firm called JDK, and now it's called Solidarity of Unbridled Labor. It's a mouthful, but it is an incredible design agency. But I want to read this intro that Michael would say. Scott hasn't heard this yet either, so if he starts to blush and turn red, this is what Michael Jagger has written about him. He's like, the lion, the lamb, and the fearless flow of Scott Lenhardt, strong and bold as the lion, the story of the Germanic 6th century Saint Lenhardt, a foreshadowing name, origin to our future Lenhardt, which is Scott. So Scott Lenhardt, raised in beautifully and unabashedly rural southern Vermont, his art ideas and very sensibility created there, it resonates with the bold uniqueness of a lion unafraid to create a universe of images, characters, spaces, and places, radically individual, powerfully crafted, and simultaneously creating art with a soft, flowing nature in line, form, and aesthetic as gentle as a lamb. Therein holds the brilliance and the beauty of Scott's art, the lion and the lamb, crafted in harmony, a visionary universe without boundaries, a gift shared with the snowboard culture and art communities around the world. For decades, Scott's work has been and remains the perfect metaphor for riding, at times bold, strong, like Ross Powers, his vertical rise, and other times flowing as the black line and brilliant of the Dragon series. Raised sideways, a stance lived, not appropriated. Scott has shaped the visual lexicon of snowboarding on our mountains, in our memories, and we're all forever grateful. So how's that, right?
I love Michael Jagger.
I know the guy's he's a wordsmith. He's amazing, but he encapsulates it. He's like, your art has changed kind of, the way snowboards and the appreciation for young people to see art on boards. So Scott, anyway, thanks for all your work.
I gotta figure out how to fit that all on a business card. That would be great. Okay, call me.
All right, let's dig in. Let's talk about where the hell is West Rupert, Vermont? That's what people are saying. Like, where? I don't even know where that is. I've lived in Vermont.
Just west of Rupert, Vermont. I'm about a mile from the New York border.
Yeah.
Some say suspiciously close to the New York border. And, I'm just over the mountain, half hour away from Manchester, where the Burton store was and where I would see you once in a while as a kid.
In there.
At the like trampoline demos and stuff.
Now, West Rupert, your home mountain was what was Bromley, right? Yeah. And let's talk about this Cleveland crew that you kind of connected with. All these folks have just gone on to just awesome things in their lives and careers.
Great group of guys, for sure. I started, I was working at Bromley in the rental department, doing ski boots. And then I think the next year I decided not to work there and just ride. And this crew came over from Magic, and they were new to our mountain. It was me and Jesse Loomis were like Bromley locals. Like, I grew up with Jet. I've known him all my life. Our dads used to work together at Hand Chevrolet in Manchester. And so we're riding there, and everyone knew Mike LaVecchia
Yeah.
From the Burton showroom. Like if you ever went in there, like he was the guy. So he was familiar to us, and that season my parents got us a video camera for Christmas, like a family RCA, like on the shoulder video camera.
Yeah.
And Jet and I just hijacked that thing and would bring it to the mountain every weekend and film each other. And then we see these guys like going so much bigger than everyone else, and like they're just laughing like they were one of us.
Yeah.
And it was because of that video camera, like they wanted us to film them so we could watch it later. And that was sort of the initial pull into
It's so cool because it's like all of this happened pre-cell phone, pre-internet. So like you wanted to, if you wanted to like see yourself snowboarding, you had to really like work at it, you know, and you know,
right.
in the display in Stowe, you have the camera there. I think the original.
Yeah, because it's so important in my life. Yeah, that camera changed my life.
You've saved so much shit. Like when we look at, like when people see these photos, actually maybe pull one of those up of like
it's hard. I'll show you the room. It's hard to get rid of things when they mean something.
Right.
Wait, yeah, this is
as you're pulling that up, I want to talk a little bit, you know, like through the Red Bench series. Oh, here it is here. Like this is just so much. Like all these boards, you've done 55 boards for Burton.
I think it's 60 now. I don't know.
Okay.
The last count. I mean, it's technical, but yeah, I think I'm at 60.
And this is where the magic happens, is in this space, or is this the storage
This
space?
is where the magic is wrapped up and stored for the past 20, 30 years. But yeah, this was my childhood bedroom at my parents' house next door.
Did you paint the ceiling?
I painted the ceiling when I was about 15 years old. My dad built scaffolding, like ripped everything out, gutted the room. I was really into Michelangelo, learning about the Sistine Chapel.
We're going to talk about that too.
I want to paint the ceiling. So I spent all summer, and it's all these like palm trees going up.
That's super cool. Well,
you know, they used the wrong paint, but
with the Red Bench series, like there was a show that happened last year, was called The Art of the Graphic. And what I love about Red Bench is they really talk about, you know, like these creative people who've done art that, you know, really has influenced the, you know, ski and snowboard and like prints and jackets and everything. And then we did another one with Gary Land, this photographer who came up snowboarding, but capturing, you know, images before technology came in, you know, with, you know, all this new type of cameras and stuff like that. And like now to see we're going, you know, not more tech, we're kind of staying on the analog side. Like for you as an artist, like you never kind of went down the digital graphic type of path. You were always like fine artist and doing art in a more traditional way, but on really progressive pieces of equipment.
Yeah. I always felt like making things by hand, more than the finished product, the making of it felt good to me, you know.
That's
like
awesome. Yeah.
And regardless, you know, what happened, like I'll still make things. I keep hearing about this AI taking over the art scene, but that's fine. I'll still make stuff. Well,
let's talk a little bit about some things about, you know, the creative process and stuff like that. I mean, so your personal background growing up, like, did you have some mentors and people who you're like, you saw some art, you're like, or like a teacher or someone like that that was inspiring and said, hey, wow, this is cool. I want to do stuff that's creative.
I did. I wanted to mention real quick, when I was a kid, I did have a mentor, but when I was really young, like 6, 7 years old, I used to draw all the time. My parents are originally from Queens, New York, College Point. And then my grandparents moved up here. So there'd be like Sunday dinners. Their friends would come up from the city once in a while. And my grandfather had a friend, his name was Freddie Percadani. He worked at a bar in Midtown. And all of the Daily News journalists and people would go there. And he knew the artist, illustrator Bill Gallo, who did every day did a giant like half-page panel, like sports illustration cartoon. So I was drawing once up there. Freddie was was around, and he's like, Scotch, draw it. And Bill Gallo had a character named Basement Bertha. He's like, draw Basement Bertha. I'll show Bill Gallo. So I drew her. And then the next time Freddie came up, he brought my drawing back. I have it here. This is the drawing of Basement Bertha that I did. And then Bill wrote all over it, like really encouraging things, you know.
How old were you when you did that piece?
Probably 6 years old.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And,
You told me a story about a guy who painted, and you were fascinated with his work.
Yeah, later on in high school, this man, Brian Sweetland, moved to our town, literally behind my parents' house. And he was on my dad's softball team, slowly got to know him. And he was a full-time plein air painter, which means, you know, you're bringing your easel outside and painting in nature. And it was like, oh, that's cool. Then he had a show, and it was like, it blew my mind from the first time I saw his work. It was just so well done, and like in such a caring way, and just captured things perfectly. And I was like, okay, like this is my hero, you know?
Yeah. Wow. Now, then at some point, you know, you're in high school, then you're like, I'm going to get more education. And you said, I'm going to go to art school. And then let's talk about that. You went to, it was in Portland, right?
Yeah, went to art school in Portland, Maine. It's the Portland School of Art.
How'd you like that?
I loved it. I got accepted to RISD and Portland School of Art.
Yeah.
RISD is like a lot bigger, but I wanted to continue snowboarding. I had just gotten like a sponsorship from Burton my senior year in high school, and I didn't want to not be able to ride. So there was snowboarding in Maine. I went there. And at the time, I think the student attendance was like 300, 350. It was really small.
Wow.
And just ramshackle grassroots college. Like they rented, you know, one of my painting classes was above like a women's clothing store. I had art history class in the back of a recently shut down porn theater in Portland.
Oh, nice.
It's like, so you're just running around that city with your portfolio, and it's like windy, and it was like boot camp. Like if you can make it through this, you can draw and paint anywhere.
That's so funny.
And they
let's talk about the first commercial project that you had for Burton. Like you have this really funny letter that someone from Burton wrote and said they're paying you. It was for two board graphics. One, you got paid $750, and the next one was $300. And I'm like, how the hell are you going to survive as an artist on like crumbs of, you know, that's such a small amount of money. But back then, you were probably stoked, you right?
Well, I really didn't care. I didn't even look at the numbers. I was like, I'm doing a board graphic. Like, where do I sign? Done.
Yeah,
I'm totally game.
Yeah. And like, who was the art director on that? Was that Julia? Is that?
He was on the Burton side. The art director was John Femister.
Oh yeah, John. Okay, yeah. He has a nice quote in here talking about you. You know, he said, working with Scott in the mid '90s on early Burton board graphics, one could already see this iconic fluid style emerging that became instantly recognizable. Always appreciated his chill demeanor and excellent skilled craftsmanship. It's been awesome watching his artwork continue to evolve through the years. So this is that line work, that flow that is really, really evident. And so
this was for a dealer ad kit that I would get paid like $50 a drawing to do, and then Burton would send out royalty-free images that companies could use, like dealers could use for ads.
Yeah, I remember.
This one ended up in the catalog, which like blew my mind. Like I was like, all right, I'm in.
Yeah.
You know? And then like this one of Terrier, and then someone at Burton was like, hey, they turned that drawing into a billboard in Japan. And this is like okay.
That's so
cool. I
get
$50.
I love that. Now, when you're working with a, you know, with the whole creative process, how much of it are they really directing you, and then and how much of it is like you say, hey, I have this idea, or is it like, here's the idea and then you have to try to execute it on, like, especially on board graphics?
It's always been like a little of both. Like I'll come in with things that I've been working on and show them, and that might spark an idea, and they're like, cool, like let's run with that. Or, you know, they're like, oh, we saw this little panel in a comic, that tree kind of looks metal, like do that, like we want that.
Okay, so they'll give you like little pieces of crumbs and threads, and then you go from there.
Yeah.
How about like
Yeah.
taking feedback from either, you know, an art director, or like, how about even maybe like criticism? Imagine that, like if somebody's
Yeah.
like,
I think that's a hard pill to swallow at the beginning, because like your art making has been this like sacred space,
sure,
and it's very personal. And then all of a sudden there's like a company and money involved, deadlines, and things need to fit into certain things. But I don't know, it can be tough. But if you like the art directors are good when there's a lot of trust between the two of you, and
yeah,
you trust each other. And there have been times where I've fought for something, like, no, it should be this way, and they're like, cool, like I got your back. And then because they report to like the suits
sure.
now that are in the big office smoking their cigars, and like, no,
Well,
you can't have that.
let's talk about like, there's like kind of boards that are more male oriented graphics, and then there's, you know, maybe some female oriented graphics. And one of the really early boards like you did that was very cool was a pro model board for Shannon Dunn. It was has these very flowing lines, and I know Shannon was really involved in, you know, they actually in the museum exhibition they have printed letters of, you know, communication with you guys, and her thanking you, and also like really appreciative of that. But like, you know, what, like you really have to understand like who is the person that this is being generated for. And there it is right there. These are beautiful. I remember this board really well.
There's the image. Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of missed that question. Oh, if like, are you talking about the flowy lines?
Yeah, and just kind of like the art director said, you know, obviously this is a female. You knew Shannon Dunn, you know who she is, but then
Yeah.
like coming up with this concept, and it's like, oh yeah, Scott would be great for this because he does this. He has this kind of flow to it, and Shannon, her writing style kind of mimicked the graphics that you came up with. You know, it was a really good match.
Yeah.
Those are
I love
beautiful.
that. Like, it doesn't have to be aggressive.
And then, you know, like when you do this art, like talk to me a little bit about the business side of it. Like you retain the original art, is that correct?
Yeah, and you can see that on that first contract that's in the show, where Burton gets the, you know, original, and I crossed it out and I just wrote me. I was like, no. I had heard that luckily at a young age, that you get to keep you know, that's yours. They are paying for the usage of the art. So,
and let's talk a little bit about the biz here. So like probably the hardest thing for an artist is pricing out your art or the project. Like with Burton, you did a mural project like inside of like a building at the Stash parks, which were these snowboard parks, and they had these concepts of painting these murals, and here you are having to paint a mural, and you did this one on the ceiling. So it was like you said, you were channeling, you know, Michelangelo painting on the ceiling. Like, look at that. That is just freaking incredible. I was like, I needed chiropractic help after that one. That was like 2 weeks in that position, and making art is frustrating. Like those clouds took me a while to like get them just right. And yeah, I'd wake up all stiff in the morning. Like, all right. Well, talk about this image, because this image is a huge piece that's on display in Baldface, which is one of the meccas of snowboarding and outside of Nelson, BC. And that is Craig Kelly. But talk about this here. This is such a great piece.
Yeah, Craig was one of the guys that started Baldface, and I think they were scouting that area. And, you know, Baldface is like the most epic of snowboarding. And Craig had a lot to do with starting it. And I think this photo was taken when they were just like looking around. And I love his footprints in there, and just like, you know, because he has left a mark in the sport.
And then, is this still available through Travis Rice's company? Was it a symbol? Which
symbol was offering prints of this, and they kind of shut that down. So
they did. Okay,
aren't available. But I have plans on doing some prints of this, just different sizes. But
okay, well, that's this. I mean, this is definitely kind of where we're going. So, with look at, like, this was
mural, right?
Yeah, that was right.
Just went down last year. They covered it up, but
see, that's
that was a big one.
You should have taken that, ripped that right off the drywall.
It's underneath what's there. I was looking closely last time.
It's super cool.
I remember I was working on this for like a month or so, and I was one of my last days finishing it. I'm up on the ladder, and I hadn't seen Jake come in, and all of a sudden, like, someone's standing next to the ladder, and I like look down, and Jake's standing there, just staring. And I was just like, oh man. And he looked up and he goes, too bad he's goofy. And
oh man,
away.
That's so Jake. That was so Jake to say that, right? That's
goofy
so
being
funny.
right foot forward. And then I'm looking at him, and he did look back and wink at me at one point.
I want to. Oh, what's that one there?
This was in the bathroom at Burton.
Oh,
I was thinking about like the most difficult jobs I've had, and painting a mural in the bathroom where like dudes are coming in and using it. Never doing that again. And then someone ended up punching a hole in the dude's face.
But this, I recognize that image. Who is that? Is that Ian Spiro, or do you remember who that is? That image doing that nose grab?
Joe Curtis.
Oh, is it Joe Curtis? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's super funny.
This is what I did in Austria, in Winkel.
That's so cool.
Dash parts. This is Killington. Got the old Jake taking the turn with the headless horseman.
Yeah.
With the full moon.
We're going to get into those graphics coming up too, because that whole series is so, those are just amazing. But keep going. There's a few more. Oh my gosh, look at that. Wow.
I did this my senior year of school in the high school. And there's me graduated.
Dude, the purple is hot. That's a good look. You should rock that again.
Pretty trippy.
All right, so we're gonna, because when we get into some of your other work, but I still want to stick here because there's some really incredible stuff at the show. Like one of the things that when people walk in, some of the prominent pieces that you see that like smack you in the face is the Dragon series. And I want you to, if you can pull those up so that people can see the reference to those boards. And it's like a horror, 80s horror kind of deal. And you just went all in on these here. And I just remember these boards, they were really expensive, but people were like, I'm buying that board. Look at the graphics on these are just insane. The detail. And when you walk up to these,
fun.
The high gloss and the detail is just, I mean, like the tree one is just beyond incredible. Yeah.
The gloss is really car clear. My dad's a car guy. He ran the body shop at Hand Chevy. And when I finished these, he's like, oh, let me clear coat these. So that's like car clear on top, but it really brings it out.
And so the process here was they gave you the idea, and then you picked these images and came with, like, you'll see sketches at the show of like the process of getting to this point, right? Which is so awesome.
It was like, oh, we're going like with this horror novel, paperback novel cover thing. Yeah. And so I was looking at like Hardy Boys books or like whatever, and we landed on these guys.
Now let's go to the Russ Powers stuff, because this is like just.
Can I just say, but this graphic, the year before, this is the Dragon series. The year before, when they started the Dragon series, they were going to do obviously dragons as the graphic, And I had like 4 years under my belt doing boards every summer. I was like kind of getting used to it, maybe a little cocky. And I had just finished a year in New York at Parsons. I'm like, all right, like, what do you guys want? And they're like, oh, we're going to do dragons. Like, go, like, do some sketches and we'll see how, you know, how we like it. And I didn't put enough into the sketches and sent them in. And like, they weren't calling me. And I was like, you know, a week or two went by. I'm like, no word. And then I finally heard they went with another artist. And I was just like heartbroken. Like I thought I had it. So the year before these, I was without a graphic job, which I had depended on. And so when these came up, they're like, yeah, we're thinking of doing this horror thing. I went home and did like really intricate sketches. You know, I'm like, I'm not going to lose this. And ever since then, I put a lot of time into the sketches.
It's awesome. Yeah. The sketch
happen.
work there is really for people who, you know, especially who really appreciate art, they're going to really see that, you know, it starts here and it evolves there. And that's like with the Ross Powers boards too. Oh yeah, look at that. That is just.
I was renting a studio here in West Trooper, the second Sermon store, and it was such a creepy room, and like it was perfect for these. Like you can kind of see that one on the wall over there, like all alone in that room. It was great. $100 a month.
It looks creepy. It totally looks creepy.
All right, you want to see Ross stuff?
Yeah, the Ross stuff, like just, I mean, who Ross is as a person, I think you embedded a lot of things into it. And then as the series of boards each year progressed, we want to talk a little bit about the stories on these, because there's people who maybe own these boards and maybe don't even see some of the detail work. You could probably talk for all day on all the different things that are embedded in these graphics.
Yeah, I had done a mural in Shelburne for this family, and there was like, it was like a evolution from deep sea to outer space in the kids' room. And Ross and I met to come up with ideas, and I was showing him pictures of it, and he liked how the water rippled in this one section. I'm like, cool, we can hide your name in there. And he wanted some sort of Vermont feel to it, but not like too traditional Vermont landscape. So yeah, the trees being like really flamey, sharp.
Yeah.
I thought, and I love like heavy nose graphics that you see on the lift. The company didn't really like that, or the sponsors don't, because when you're holding the board after your run, like that's where all your stickers are.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, this was sketch for it, you know, just laying it out for him. Oops.
Right. Now, take us through the progression, how like the next one, what happens in the next graphic where it's eating the graphic, eating the previous board, which is so great.
Real quick, while we're on that first one. So this is Brian Sweetland, who I was telling, my mentor. This is one of his paintings on the left.
Oh, wow.
That Randy Gaetano actually bought when
That's a beautiful painting.
When he was flush with cash from being a professional snowboarder. And I was pulling that image today, and I was like, oh my God, like I never noticed the similarities in the trees on the right and left.
Yeah.
Coming together, and the animals. That was cool. All right, so Raw 2. Let's see, that one. Got a lot of these sketches here for this one. The second one was tricky because he's like, I want this darker. I want it to be like a little more evil. So I was sketching some things out, you know, it's this like mutant head. And then had this idea, this guy's going to be chewing on the previous board from the year before. And the head's being carried by a bat. So these are like the loose drawings involved and just trying to figure it out. Then here's the finished piece.
So cool. Yeah.
We got the full moon with the bat. This hair.
Glow in the dark.
Now.
Right? Didn't they use glow in the dark ink on the moon on this one?
On the moon, they might have. Yeah, they might have put that, just hit that. But this
that's the way I sold it. You know, that I always like, I could tell little lies here and there, maybe just to make it sell better.
First, yeah, and there's the board in his mouth.
So cool.
From the year before, it's like, no, we're going a new direction.
and then go to the
Super
next
fancy.
one, which is even another
Well,
progression, right?
yeah, well, here's the little detail. My band Butt Pie, I wrote in blood on the teeth, Buttpie. That's when I was starting to hide some butt pie stuff in there. Here's a sketch I always liked. All right, then the third powers was the
A robot, right?
oh no, oh yeah, I got it. I only have the, oh, there it is. Okay. Yeah, that was the robot. This was the sketch I gave him. So continuing with, okay, now there's going to be a robot that's busting through the first year and then the second year. And he's got holding chunks of each board graphic in his hands. And I think Ross had an old Cadillac at the time. Like he bought this old limousine or something. So I'm like, all right, it's going to be sort of like a limousine and a guy like driving. There's a little dude in the windshield there driving this Cadillac robot
So
is
cool.
busting through.
Yeah.
And then all the smoke, and then we've got this like robotic powers sort of graffiti inspired lettering underneath.
So rad.
And that was the board he rode when he won his gold medal.
So dope. I mean, what a rush that must have been. What, like, that is
so
still
cool.
one of my pinnacle moments in snowboarding. We were at a trade show and we were watching the Olympics, and the whole, like, everyone from this trade show was watching it, and watching Ross win that gold. People went berserk. It was unbelievable. It was so exciting. That was
like, there was not a person in Vermont not rooting for that kid. Like
right.
Everyone loves
exactly.
him.
That was so hot. And then show the last one, because this kind of ties into this whole thing about a diorama that you created, right? With and then,
well, there's the fourth one, which is the Four Horsemen.
oh wait, yeah, this
right. I was like, oh, we're gonna do the Four Horsemen of the Apocalyptics because you just won the gold. I was like, your career's over, man. Like, this is it. So here's the full board. So we had, and then this one incorporating, you know, you've got this guy up here, you've got the bat reference, and he's got 5 eyeballs, like the severed head. And then this guy represents the first board, all that orange and the deer skull. And then this is like the robot from the third one. Yeah. And then the Grim Reaper at the bottom who's wearing the gold medal.
So cool.
Yeah, this one right here, BP. This has probably the most butt pie hidden messages.
People don't know what that is. Like, Butt Pie is a band that he was in from way
Butt Pie
back.
was my band.
Right.
I started in high school. We're still a band. You know, it's like a BP here. They're all over the place. But this one also was the year after Jamil Khan passed away. And in the horse's mane up here, it says Jamil.
Oh, wow. Yeah, never knew that. Yeah, Jamil was kind of a part of this crew of really great riders that were coming out of the East Coast, and so sad when he got you know, he was going for the Olympics too. He was a candidate for the Olympics, and he passed away. That was really sad.
Tremendous energy, that kid.
All right,
this is the in progress.
We got a lot of graphics I want to flash on.
Okay,
so show me that one with the diorama and how that whole came about, because that will lead into like another little angle that we want to approach here.
Yeah, okay. Ross 5. This one, right? That also has the 3-dimensional version of it. I didn't build the 3D version, but yeah, this one was like, this was the art director's reference. So this was a Rick Griffin cover for Steppenwolf.
Yeah.
It was like, we want it to be like this busy, lots of stuff. So again, incorporating everything and all of you know what was going on in Ross's life. This little engine in the middle is basically an upside down version of the actual drawing. You've got, you know, all this stuff going on. I think I haven't. Yeah, here we go. I had to invert it because there's some upside down stuff in here. Like it says Powers upside down there.
Yeah.
And then in the roots, we have like JK for Jamil Khan. We had CK for Craig Kelly, and then JA for Jeffy Anderson.
All right, let's go to some the next one that's part of the exhibit that's really incredible to see all the kind of the Danny Davis, that whole back wall with a lot of the work you did on those graphics for him. There was some really, really fun concepts and ideas there.
Yeah, these were the first boards for Danny.
Yeah.
This was my first year working with him. Other than, we did the Mountain Dew bottle, but then like whatever, 10 years later, he asked me to do the graphics.
Yeah.
And so I sent him so many sketches. Like, I'm like, I want to blow this kid's mind. And he went for the most simple version that I sent. He's like, no, all white. I just want this rainbow with the eyeball. I'm like, okay.
Well, these are so visually stunning because the photos of him riding these boards, you've never seen anything like that, even though it's simple.
Real eye catcher for sure.
Really cool. Yeah. And
this was sort of referencing an old, that old BT shirt that I did for Barry back in the day.
Yeah.
Cool. And Danny knew all that stuff, which was great.
Yeah, he's a pretty astute historian of Burton history, but also snowboard history, which is very cool. Yeah, the detail in
really
those
fun
really nice. Yeah.
And I had everything else was just like solid color. I'm like, I need a spot where I can show off. Like, I'm gonna put everything into this eyeball right here.
Let's do the free thinker. The ones that have the really beautiful, the next adjacent ones that have. They kind of look like 70s surfboards. Like, actually,
well, these are the ones after that. We did snowboarders
cool.
on the base.
Yeah.
Which, having conversations, trying to come up with ideas. He just mentioned it in passing. Like, I've never seen someone snowboarding as the graphic. And I was like, dude, that's it. Like, this could really flop. Like, let me try it. Because, like, if it doesn't come out good, it's going to be awful.
They look so stylish, though. Yeah, really fun.
Yeah. It was the ex-girlfriend posing so I could get the hand just right on that face. Like, hold this piece of wood. Here's a sketch outtake. This was almost the top sheet. Like the perspective, like you're gonna drop into the pipe and the whole crowd.
That's funny.
Had drawings in the show. Okay, so then and on the base, so these are the two boards, top and base. I was painting these during the height of the pandemic. Like the sketches were approved like around that day, like March 13th or whatever.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, we still have a deadline, so you got to do it. And I was riding my bike to my studio, which luckily was really close, and just painting through that scary time. And at the same time, Gleeblands got note that we were getting a cover story on the Snowboarders Journal. And so we were all sharing old photos with each other, trying to like reminisce and get the story together. And it just like really helped me through every time, like being on the text thread with the bros. So I had snuck Glebe in the arm of this guy, like GLEE, and then it kind of turns the corner and does lands. But
right on.
Yeah. Glebe made it into that one. So
that's sweet. That's nice detail. Yeah. So then I think we go to the free thinker. Is that right? Those I love those. Yeah, those are
cool. This was like all Danny. He was like, I want, he wanted the 70s. I gotta tell you, I don't know if I have the top sheets. He wanted this like 70s vibe.
Totally. Bing surfboards in the 70s. That's exactly Dave Bing. They were doing those. Super Morning of the Earth was this psychedelic surf movie that had Jimi Hendrix soundtrack, and people would like drop acid and surf, but their boards were all these like 70, like these are super 70s.
I,
And
like, I grew up with this because my dad's he painted cars, and I went to
Yeah.
custom car shows with him in the 80s, and like, I had an airbrush when I was a kid. He's got a shop here.
sick.
So this was like right in my wheelhouse,
Yeah.
and I was thrilled to do it.
That whole series, when you see this in the show, the whole lineup, it's just dynamite. Yeah, you really capture it.
The other one's in here somewhere, but this is like what I would send Danny. Like, here's a bunch of B's for you to pick from, basically.
Yeah. Wow.
When I'm coming up with ideas, everywhere I look, I see the letter B in a different way to draw it. And so this one second top row, that made the cut. Then we're like, all right, what's on the other board? And I was like racking my brain, pacing around, and that's the B on the right that ended up.
Great.
But I just wanted to mention, I have this photo on the left of my sweatpants draped on my dresser, because a lot of times I'll take naps if I'm trying to come up with ideas, because I think the in between being awake and asleep, like, I always get good ideas, and you just like, you have to be able to wake yourself up with a pen and paper and like write that down. So I was taking a nap, I woke up, and I just see my sweatpants just draped, and I was like, oh, it's a B. And I don't know if you can see, I mean, that's the B. It goes down and then
I gotcha.
Is that clear?
I see it.
Am I crazy?
You are,
like,
but this is good. Like,
draw that B. Yeah, I remember sending Danny this. I'm like, dude, I figured it out. I saw some sweatpants. And he's like, yeah, you're weird, but just get it done.
All right, let's do this. We have 10 minutes, so we got
Oh my God, what?
No, we got key ones. I want to see the Republic boards, and then we got to go to I want to turn the corner like we're going through the exhibit, but let's do the Republic boards, because those are really stunning. That wasn't a great selling board, but it wasn't because of the graphic. These were big, kind of stiff, like really aggressive rider boards. But man, the graphics on these were just so rad.
Yeah, these are so fun. I mean, the originals, that's the original. I was doing brushed ink on paper.
Yeah.
There's the sketch, not slacking on the sketches. And then art directed by Dennis Kegler, who, like, genius move to like do this split screen. So every board was different, because they would put orange and yellow and then pull the thing. So like, however they came together, it was always different. And then the blue and the white, like this one, you can see like some weird streaks in it. They were all sort of unique.
All right, now let's go to the shows. One of the showstoppers, which is the U.S. Open, the posters. And we got to talk about the whole inspiration with these.
Okay, yeah.
And this was art directed by Toby Grubb, I believe, right?
Toby Grubb, yeah.
Yeah. So these paintings are so detailed and amazing. And so yeah, let's talk about these and who your artist inspiration was with this Frank Frazetta and this whole story.
Like, Toby approached me and he said, we have this idea. We want a series of 3 posters that show this warrior who's like going home, and on the way home, he's like encounters these bad guys and he's got to defeat them, but he's got a snowboard. So he said like fantasy art, and I'm like, okay, like I know this one artist. Like, I was looking, who didn't really know a lot of his work, but his name's Frank Frazetta. And so I started digging into him. I'm like, this guy is a master. Like, here's some Frank Frazetta. Like, he's the guy when it comes to fantasy, that composition of like triumphant battling.
Molly Hatchet, right? Molly Hatchet album
Molly
cover.
Hatchet cover, yeah.
Conan the Barbarian. Yeah.
Like, whenever there's a dude, like a muscular dude with like a staff, and then a girl with like a tangled, ripped bikini made out of skin, and then a panther, those 3 things, you're just, that's Frank Frazetta.
Okay.
So me and some friends went to the Frank Frazetta Museum, which is in Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania, and got to see his originals. And there's this woman working there, and it turned out it was Frank's wife. And I was like, oh my God, like I need to talk to you. Like I have.
This is yours. This one on the screen is yours.
This is me. Yeah. Yeah. So
show the three. Show the three
the,
that you did. Like there's
part of
that
the
one.
It's like step one. Here's the warrior. I think he sees smoke coming from his home. So he's got to get down there. But that lower right has those like scary trees he's got to get through. And this is what's happening down there. They're waiting for him, like holding their maces, and there's all the thorns. And then the third one, he goes down and just like kills them all, I guess. But he still has his board in his hand. So Frank would always do in oil paint, and his wife's like, oh, he did all these in one night, and oil paint on illustration board, and a lot of times would have to put them in the oven because the due date, and he had to dry the paint. He was insane. And she's like, 15 cups of coffee a day, Mary Jane candies. And she was giving me all his secrets, and I went home and attempted that, and like it's just there's no way.
These people have to see, like they see to be believed, because the original works, when you look at them, you're like, wow, this is like, it's like Renaissance art. Like it's so
I was like doing like here's the like in progress, full underpainting, to get the glow. And that comes through,
It's dope.
Yeah,
well, you can spend a lot of time on these, but there's one more series that we got to focus on, is the Omen series with Craig Kelly, because you have a really.
I don't think I pulled those.
That's okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about like you did get to do a project with Craig, and it has the beautiful flow to it, right? On those boards.
Yeah. They were like the sort of chrome-looking tree branches.
Yeah, those were dynamite.
Which I thought went so well with Craig's style, like so solid and clean.
All right, now we need to blow some people's minds. So aside from all of this incredible 60 different board graphics, now you get to see a whole other side of Scott. So it's going to start with pet portraits. Are you ready for this? Let's see some pet portraits, because these, if you go on S. Lenhardt, that's his on Instagram, you just blow your mind. These are his favorite pet portraits. And if anybody wants their pet painted, it's not going to be cheap, but there's a waiting list, but you could get Scott does commissions on these here. But where do you see some of these? Like, talk to me about these. These are insane. They're so beautifully executed.
I started years ago, kind of doing it for family and friends. And then word got out, and like people were just reaching out once in a while, like, oh, my cat died, or I'm looking for a Christmas present.
Yeah.
And I just realized, like, I've made a lot of art for different things, but these pet portraits, it's like I know exactly where this is going, and it's going into the hands of the people that love these creatures or love still alive.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I've just gotten a lot of notes of like.
Show a few more. You got a couple of beautiful ones. I mean, they're all. Yeah,
this is a new one. This is Shamroos's dog Levi, that his wife has commissioned me to paint for his Christmas present.
All right, now we're going to talk about Brooklyn. So at some point, you're this rural bumpkin kid that moves to Maine, does art, and then all of a sudden you're like, I'm going Brooklyn. I'm going like the hippest place in the world. You go to Brooklyn, you're playing music, you're doing art, you're like trying to get in the scene, galleries, you're like, all this different stuff is happening. And you ended up doing some window displays for the Burton store, but also for Barney's. And let's look at a few of those, because that was just insane. The stuff you did for Barney's, the windows, and Burton. In the exhibition, there's these gigantic, like kind of old man winter blowing, like that are staged really high in the museum here. And they're just really cool, very well executed. And you could just walk by, and if you know a little bit about Scott's art, there you go. You'd be like, wow, that looks like a Scott Lenhardt piece. And that's really hard for an artist to kind of, define a look. And you really nailed it with these pieces. These look really cool.
Fun. So I got the gig to design windows for the Burton Soho store that was opening in New York. And I gave a year worth of window ideas. The job, they rented me this huge studio. And then it was like, okay, pull it off. And that was tricky in the city. But those cutouts were in the windows like this. This was the sketch I sent them.
Yeah.
Behind the cutouts, my dad helped me fashion this like rotary motor that was attached to like a stovepipe that I poked holes in, and I would stuff it with fake snow every day, and it would spin. So behind these paintings, they were like making it snow, and I made mountains. So as the month, they were up for a month, so it kept getting deeper and deeper.
Those are great. And then so show the Barney's windows too. Those were really with the Versace clothing in there. Oh wow, look at these. Yeah, there's some different ones. But I love that the one you showed a little earlier, the Versace.
Oh yeah. So these were in June of 2001. Girlfriend at the time worked for Jonathan Adler, who's like a ceramicist, house goods dude down there, and he's married to Simon Doonan, who was the creative director at Barney's.
Right.
And I met those guys, and Simon was like, all right, like come work for the window display department. So I was like on the crew doing that. And then he was like, you know, I want to give
you on a few of the other shots too, the bigger ones. Yeah,
these like weird sort of potato fish that I was doing. And we had the originals are really tiny. We blew them up. JDK actually printed these for me on canvas. Nice. And then we glued that to wood, cut it out. But that was a thrill to see that, like Madison Avenue. Like so cool.
Unreal. All right, now because we're in New York and we're going Gucci, we're going like, you know, celebrity now. Let's talk about Bill Murray owning one of your paintings. But also before I do that, I just have to say, Scott was involved with Parker Posey, who's one of my favorite actresses, and she was part of his life for a little bit, and they had some time where they were doing their own little artwork and kind of living upstate. But then this whole Bill Murray thing, and then Chloe Sevigny and Bill Murray, like you're like brushing up against like ultra celebrities, and that's they want to own your work.
You never know what's gonna happen in that city.
Show me that Jordan, those two Jordan pieces. These, where do you see, when people see this, they're going to be like, are you kidding me? Like everyone who thinks they know Scott Lenhardt, this is what you don't know. And when you see these two Michael Jordan pieces, they're just ridiculous. And one of them, Bill Murray owns. Like, it's awesome.
Well, this is a piece I did for.
That's a painting. That is
an art show.
Painting. Look at the people.
It took about 3 months. I had a solo show with Pascal Spangeman in the city, and
snowboard graphics, incredible. But this is like, what? That's so insane.
This is actually like I would love to do this all the time. It just takes so long, and you don't know if it's going to sell, and it's dicey.
Right.
Okay, then I did this one, which was for Michael Jordan's 50th birthday. I was asked by this design firm, Doubleday and Cartwright, to do this painting. They were going to make a book for him, and then they had this big party, displayed all of the artwork, and Michael got to like walk through it all. And then they sent the painting back, and I'm friends with Bill's son, Hurt, and you know they're from Chicago, and he's like, do you still have that Jordan golfing painting? I'm like, yeah. He's like, I want to buy that for my dad for Father's Day. I'm like, okay, I'll sell it to you, but one catch, I get to hang it in the house, which he's got this big house up in the Palisades. He's like, oh yeah, of course. So we went up there and hung it here. There's this brass nail on the wall just sitting right there. This is like in the bar of the house. That is just an insane place.
That is so incredible.
So I hang the painting and I'm like, cool. I'm like, and what's this weird like plastic thing? He's like, oh, that's the torch that Muhammad Ali used to start the Olympics. And it's like signed by Ali. I'm like, yeah, great. This is the perfect place for this painting. Dude, like, holy crap.
Your stories are insane. And I gotta keep going because there's more. All right. Tell me about the 24-hour woman. Tell me about this.
Okay. Yeah, 24-Hour Woman was a project that I started, with when I was with Parker. She was always like cheering me on to do new things and like follow the thing that you're good at, like, and I would always draw this little naked lady. She's like, you draw her so quick, it always makes me laugh, it makes you laugh, like do something with that character. So she had a mug at the house that just said 24-Hour Woman on it, and I just kind of like one day driving, I was like, wait, a 1-a-day calendar,
So you tear it off.
pages only last for 24 hours, but the other meaning is a 24-hour woman, who like the woman who does everything.
Right.
So then did this for 8 years, and so many drawings every year. I had to come up with like 315 drawings of her doing a different thing and not repeating any of the of the activities.
I love it.
Yeah,
We could spend a lot of time on this, but people have been hanging at the edge of their seats, waiting to hear the Trey Anastasia, the Phish stories.
Oh, yeah. We didn't do that yet.
No,
okay.
Dude, I held this off today.
Saving that. Awesome.
Right. So here's the thing, right? There's people whose lives revolve around Phish. So they're, even if you don't love Phish, wait till you see the work that Scott did, and you're going to just trip out. So let's go. Tell the story. Show the key connection point. Okay.
I'm going to start out light here. This was for the Coventry Festival, what was to be their last performance. I was on the art crew, built this hot rod porta-john. So, people could go in there. There was a disco ball, the headlights lit up. The back of it had these like exhaust thing. There was a huge speaker in the back of this that was like just shaking the thing with bass. And we would drive it around at like 4 a.m. in the campgrounds, like asking people if they needed to go to the bathroom. That was fun. But then wait, let me skip to this one. This was in 2003.
Okay. This is what I'm talking about.
Pascal, again, gave Trey my phone number. I had just gotten a cell phone. And everyone's like, dude, I was like the last one to get one. You got to get a cell phone for your business, like you're going to need it. So I was like a week in on having a cell phone, and it rings, and I didn't pick it. It said unknown number. I didn't pick up, and I pull over and listen to it. I'm like, what? It's like some friend of Pascal's like wants me to do an album cover, like whatever. And I listened again. He's like, hey, this is Trey. I'm in a band called Phish. I don't know if you know us, but I want to talk to you about a cover. And then I just like turned white. I was like, this is insane. So he wanted me to do this concept where he's in his barn. He loved my little creatures. That's why his shoulders are like that. And it was done in the diorama light box.
Show that photo at the bottom. This is so wild.
There he is. This was the photo shoot. My friend Tim Barber shot this, and his sister Sue did the design for the album.
Great.
But it was like, oh, you're a conductor looking back at yourself in your barn, like that was the concept. But we ended up just going with the.
Didn't he come to your house, or you went through like and listened to the record before anybody even heard it? Like, what was that?
He came over when I was living above Sneakers in Winooski. And he came over, he had the CD. I'm sitting on the couch, and he was conducting the album. And I'm like, I was so nervous, just like, oh my God. And then we came up with that concept, and I'm like, well, if you want me to paint you, I need to like see the barn and see the setup. And I just wanted to get in there. So I went up there one day, and it was just him and I. And I had my real film camera to take reference photos. And I was like, he's like plugging the guitar in, or he's like, you want me to pose like this? I'm like, yeah, that's cool. And I'm like, what are those things on the floor? Like, are those guitar pedals? Just kind of playing dumb. And he's like, yeah, like this one does this. And he starts hitting them and like looping and playing like this crazy trippy loop song or whatever. And I'm sitting there just like shooting photos, and stupidly only brought one roll of film. And I think after 12 frames, like I was like, oh, I'm done with the film. He's like, oh, okay. like shut everything down, took the guitar off.
All right. So here's the thing, right? This is mind blowing. It's so rad to see the range of what you do, but we do have to get to some questions. So I'm going to pop up a few questions.
Yeah.
And then we can still talk some more story here. So here's the first one. Scott, do you have a favorite graphic that you've created that never made it to a production board? This is from a guy named Duncan Warner. So have you ever done one that you're like, oh, I love that, but they never did it?
No, there was a series of boards that I did that never made it, but they were like really edgy, and the art directors at the time were trying to sneak something through. It was after those Playboy boards came out. There's like the whole controversy, and they're like, let's do something like even crazier. And I did the paintings, and they paid me. And then, you know, Greg Dockershin, I think it got to him, and he was just like, hey, he's like, what are these? And they're like, oh, like they were trying to sneak it through before he saw it. And I look back, like, I'm glad those didn't make it, because that would have ruined my career.
Here's one from Max Holzman. And if you remember Max had a lot to do with making boards and making stuff happen. He's got a really cool company where he makes split boards, you know, now, and he makes them in his garage.
Max at the opening. Yeah.
He's incredible. So just let's see from Max here. He says to Scott, of all the years and all the graphics for Burton that you've created, which are the ones that are your favorite ones to work on?
To work on?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, any of the newer ones, like, you know, I don't know. I had fun and had a horrible time with all of them. That's just how it works. Yeah. They've all been like a journey, but I think the last couple, like being here in Rupert, making them, have felt pretty good.
Awesome. Here's one, and I want you to show this. Why isn't Scotty wearing a cowboy hat? This is from Vin LaVecchia. So show the Vin LaVecchia painting.
Oh yeah, okay.
Just because Vin's a wise ass.
The Cowboys.
But yeah, when you see this incredible self-portrait that I think Vince had no idea that you actually were going to do this. Look at this painting. That's like photo real. That is beyond amazing.
This is commission's partners.
I cannot believe
this is a 4x5 foot. Yeah. I'm starting one of these, right? I've been in a new painting that's in this realm for the past 2 weeks, and it's like, I love it, but it's intense.
Yeah, it is intense. Vince is intense.
But, right. Man, you know, like doing a painting of someone you love at that scale, and like there was a moment on that right eyebrow, I did this one color. I'll always remember it, and like it brought him to life for like a few milliseconds, and I was just like, oh my God, Vin's right here.
I love it. So this one from Jared Newell. Scott, what's your favorite Ross Powers graphic?
Oh man. I mean, the first one is so distinct. That's a favorite.
Yeah.
The first two, like really, I love how different they are, and like how graphic that second one is. The hair, I love that.
Yeah. All right, and here's an anonymous attendee. This is so weak. Who would do this anonymously? How much do you love Vin? I'm like, come on, dude. Like, we all love Vin. Like,
I love him like whatever 4x5 is. Yeah, I love him that much. To spend 3 months painting the guy.
Right? So iconic, man.
Love that.
All right, here's one from Josh Brown. Now, Josh Brown is he was very instrumental he has a business called Capacitor that does graphics, and they're a creative design agency, and the art of the graphic, which was the show before your show, Josh Brown had a lot to do with the curation, and his a lot of his work was shown in that show. So his question is, hey, Abby, Cope, and Scott, can Scott explain the significance of the Perry Farrell drawing on the board from the photograph he shared of the boards in his room as it relates to Shannon Dunn? P.S. Nice Stewart's cup, Scott. And,
somebody caught that.
Well,
it's not a milkshake. It's just water, but
right on. Well, in the show,
there it is.
Yeah, let me see if I can get this out of the way here. Are these questions in the way?
This
here?
is the only actual snowboard in the show
Yeah,
on the
and
walls.
that is so for Scott to answer. I mean, for Josh Brown, is there any relation? Like, why is this curated and put next to the Shannon Dunn graphics? Was there any reason for that?
That board I got from JG. You can see it says 95. Pretty cool. It says BP 95. It's a little butt pie reference that JG had no idea he was doing. But I got that board to test, a twin tip. And before the US Open that year, I mean, I'm thinking like, I want to get into this industry. I want a job. I want to do graphics. And I was a huge Perry Farrell, Jane's Addiction fan.
Yep.
So I painted Perry on my board, and I'm like, you know, I'm going to this event like near my house where everyone shows up at, and I'm going to walk around with this thing, and maybe someone will see it and it will lead to something. And sure enough, the day after the event, I was at the half pipe sessioning, and Shannon Dunn was there and came up, and she's like, I love that Perry Farrell painting. I'm like, thanks. Introduced herself. Then later that year, Shem Roos had just started at Transworld out in California, and he met her out there, and you know, California, whatever, no shirt or a muscle shirt. He has this tattoo of an angel that I did for him. And she's like, I love your tattoo. Who did it? He's like, oh, my friend Scott. And she's like, wait, I met him. And like putting those two pieces together, that's for the angel graphic.
Josh Brown knew the answer to that, but he just wanted to throw that softball.
Josh, that's a good story. I mean, if anyone out there like wants to break into snowboarding, like that's how I did it. Like I basically painted my board and like went to show it off at the biggest event in Vermont. You know?
So your buddy Shem Roos, who again was part of Cleveland's crew, took his career out to, you know, Transworld Snowboarding, photo editor, you know, shoots photos of Kevin Durant, you know, shot photos of all kinds of people. He asked another softball question, you know, are you sponsored by Stewart's? What's in the cup? Well, you already kind of answered that, but see how these nerdy people, like they look at every little
Shem and I share a love of Stewart's milkshakes, and they come in these cups. And I went there today to get this cup for this event, just to subtly give props.
Great. Okay, here's one. All right, so from Dan Brandon, he says, dying to see some prints of the Burton Special series. Could it ever happen? Those were so rad, by the way.
The
see, like
charcoal drawings.
Yeah,
right?
People, they have these, I don't know, can you dig those up? Do you have those or?
Yeah, well, those are the few originals I don't have. Those went missing.
Oh.
Somewhere.
But you know what I love, dude? Like those boards are so cool, but there are people who the art really like it locked in their brain, and they were like, "That's super rad," and they still remember it to this day. Like they remember the name of the board.
Yeah, or they just had they had a good season that year.
Yeah, it's so cool.
There's one you can see this like charcoal. It's a horrible resolution, but there's a snake in a tree.
Oh yeah, the whiteboard there. Yeah, and those had like lime green sidewalls.
Yeah, bright green sidewalls. There's one down here that's like the light blue on white. But that was sort of a move on JDK's part. Like, let's do a board that's just charcoal drawings on white. Like that was a different look. You know, everyone was going for like flash.
Sure.
And for like really subtle.
Here's a cool question from Ryan Coulter. Again, another like just legendary person that helped create so many cool things at Burton, and now he's part of he owns the James brand. He's one of the owners of James brand, which makes incredible knives. They're one of our sponsors tonight, so thanks to the James brand. Ryan Coulter says, what's your dream commission? If you could do anything for anybody, what would it be?
I've done them, like
a
giant portrait of Vin.
Okay, so it's done. You're already done.
An album cover for Trey, maybe like I don't know. So I was obsessed with Iron Maiden cover. Like I had every Iron Maiden poster they ever made growing up. I never owned an Iron Maiden album. Like I don't even know. I never listened to them. Didn't like them. I would love to do like if Iron Maiden commissioned me to do a poster.
I can see that. How about this? Here's Vince LaVecchia again. So Vince started like at Burton, just like low-level dude. And then, you know, such a great personality, worked with the team, started doing marketing. We really understood like things about brands and creative and stuff. So he moved out to Portland, Oregon, and built this incredible business with some partners, and they became a force in, you know, the whole kind of design and creative world. So he's asking us, he's saying, this is not a softball question. Let's talk about the future of hand-painted art for snowboard graphics. Do you believe brands will continue to see value in this process? That's a good question. See, he's very tech and very...
I hope so. I mean, it's something I think about when I'm making these things. I'm putting so much energy into them in hopes that like a fraction of that energy is going to come through when someone's standing on it and like riding it, or sitting in their room and it's leaning against the wall and it's like, I got to go ride that thing. Like, I don't know. I don't think you get the energy with computers. I don't know.
This is kind of a cool one here from this Jacob Jamin. It says, sorry to get tech here, but how are they getting the art from your canvases to the format where it can be applied to the board? The detail and the texture in your originals are so amazing. That's a good question. Thanks, Jacob.
Yeah, I think, you know, they take photographs of the painting with good light, and then Leo Listy at Burton, who does production, I don't know how he does. He's a genius, like figuring out color separations and then making it all come together with little tiny dots. And early on, I would always be disappointed in the final product because it didn't look anything close to the originals.
The technology's gotten better though, right?
They're getting way better. Yeah, it's like now I have some boards coming out next year with Danny that I'm not allowed to show yet, I guess, but we were thinking about that. I'm like, I want people to see like the chunky paint and like all of it, you know.
Very cool. Now,
Danny said to me last year, like when we were doing those, he's like, I want these to look like you came over to my house and I gave you a bunch of mushrooms and you just painted on my snowboards. I'm like, okay, that's a good.
That can be done.
Different than the 70s surfboards.
So one of the things that I like to, you know, talk about, like when I go to see, like there's a big thing in Burlington called the Art Hop, and you see like all these people, like there's probably 400, 500 people that actually show art, you know, and I'm like, this is so cool that this many people make art and are going to present it out, you know, they're going to put it out in the world, right? And so I love that Vermont has that level of people who are inspired, but I also really want people to think about like artists, it's a hard life, man. And it's like, how do you like monetize it, make money off of it? And what we talked about before this is you were saying like, would love to like maybe do a retrospective and maybe do a book that showcases your art. But then at some point, some of this art, you may want to actually get it out there and sell it to collectors or museums or just people who are just obsessed with some of your art. So people should stay in touch with you and through different, you know, the social media, whether it's, you know, your Instagram or through your website, or if they want to commission a piece like, you know, like a portrait, a pet portrait or something. And I know you're busy, but I mean, that's kind of like the life of an artist. Like, how do the projects come your way? Like, you don't have an agent, you don't have a gallerist that's like pushing your stuff.
Open. I mean, there's scary times where there's nothing happening and I gotta like reach out. Luckily, doing snowboards for so many years, I've met a lot of art directors that have gone on to start their own companies, like Dennis Kegler and Toby Grubb and Adam Bagarski with this, like Lance Violet, Malcolm Buick, you know, like these guys are out there and they're like, oh, we always think of you, you know, like if something comes up, like they'll hit me up, and I've managed to make my way that way.
We got a couple other questions came in from Barbara Walls. It says, I see so much fluidity in your work. Have you considered a collaboration with a glass or metal sculpture artist? I also love the hidden names in your work. I've placed Easter eggs in my magazine designs for years. Well, thanks, Barbara, for that.
Cool.
You know?
That's a cool, good question. I'd love to experiment with glass blowing. But I haven't. Yeah.
well, metal and glass, like some of like those Omen board series, like everything was like, I remember Craig said like snowboarding, it's like you want to be like Mercury, like a basketball being thrown down and it just kind of like flows down, with these, just a run and it just is going to have this movement.
And I like to do things once in a while where I'm making something where I really don't have that much control over.
Yeah.
And you just have to be cool with it, A lot of what I do, I can paint over, I can adjust, and I start going crazy to get it perfect.
Here's one from a previous art director, Dennis Healy, who, he did a lot of work for Rome Snowboards, and then came over and did a lot of work for Burton, and now he's kind of doing his own thing. And he says, can you tell us about playing guitar at the US Open? Is music a big influence in your art? And we keep hearing Butt Pie. And what other things that people don't know is you toured with a couple of bands. You actually went to South by Southwest. You played a European tour. So let's talk a little bit about music. That's a big thing.
Yeah, music is huge, and playing music has always infiltrated into my art making, especially in these snowboards. I think about it a lot. Actually, like when you're wait, let me just get let me get this picture up here.
You play bass, just for people.
I play bass. Yeah, there he is on the right. This is at the USC Loomis. Ben McCullen on drums, who's in this. When you're playing music on stage and you're doing it, I don't know if I want to say doing it right, but like the feeling is there. It goes out into the crowd will react their way, and it comes back to you, which makes you go harder, which makes them go, it's like this cycle. And when I'm painting boards, especially because I know this is going like these are going to be sold around the world when I'm done, and I'm alone in a barn or whatever painting them, and I need to have that energy there. So I think about like audience a lot, and like specific audience in a way. I like make up people to think about while I'm doing it.
Yeah. But so tell me a little bit about Eloise and a little bit about the Europe tour and all that. What's all that about?
Yeah, Eloise and the Savoir Faire. I did a tour with those guys. Oh, here they are. Oops, maybe it isn't there. Where is she? Well, this is a band that was friends of mine from Brooklyn, Burlington, Brooklyn. And they asked me, their bass player was having a baby. And this is in, I want to say 2008, maybe, or 9. And she's like, I got a UK tour. My bass player can't make it. And we were good friends. I go to dinner parties all the time and hang out. So she's like, you're doing it. You got to learn all of our songs. Crash course. Here's a picture of the band to get an idea.
Dude,
and I painted this. This is Joe Shepard, one of the dancers. I painted him to look like a Cooked album cover. Super fun. It's like disco rock. And the first night we were playing, this is like in London, and I'm so nervous. And like some of the songs are complicated. It's like funk and like really bass heavy. And I'm in this one song that's pretty complicated. And Joe, who you see here, walks up to me, like looks me in the eye, like he knew it was coming up, like this part that I had to nail. And he looks me in the eye, takes a step back, and then he did a front handspring, and like his legs were over my shoulder. And I'm just like staring down. Like I had to see what I was playing. I didn't want to mess up, but also it was just like his crotch in these like glitter spandex. And I'm just like, don't lose.
I get that visual. I can see it. I can totally see it.
It was an initiation thing, but that was so fun. Like London, Scotland, Brussels, Paris.
See, this is it. Like your life and your career, like you come from this rural dink ass little town in southern Vermont, and now you're like rock star playing over in Europe. You're putting products out that are all over the world. And, young kids, if any young kids are listening to this, like, think about this. Like, you could be just doing art, living here in Vermont and making a good living and living the good life. So
But also,
Maybe
I would
sure.
like go out there. You can always come back.
That's right,
It's-
but all these like school programs where they're trying to cut art out, like
oh
that's
my
like
God,
so
yeah, no,
bad.
I'm
Like
with
we
you.
want kids to be inspired by your work. And again, like this whole thing, we're pretty much, gonna wrap it up here. Let me just see. I think we got 2 more questions coming in. We got, well, Dave Schmidt, one of the guys who made this whole thing happen. He said, you guys are both rock stars. I don't know about that, but great job. Thank you, Dave, for
Thank you,
being a
Dave.
part of the Red Bench series, because you brought a lot of good energy and like really showcasing how snowboarding is really great for the economy of Vermont. It keeps people, engaged, employed, and you can really see just some very talented, smart people who, are taking whatever the creativity they have and then putting it out in the world and creating great stuff. So I want to thank, again, the sponsors like Darn Tough, James Brand, Mizu water bottles, Dosty's, who had a lot to do with framing a lot of your work, the Dosty Bros.
Yeah. Oh my God. I've been meaning to reach out to those guys. So insane what they did.
We hung some of the art and it fell off the walls and the glass was smashed. So like that was my first like attempt to help hang this show, and they were like, dude, you're not invited back.
You're also tall. Everything was like hung up high. Like,
Thanks for your help. And then Foley, Ryan Foley used to be a one of our sponsored riders, and he owns this big cat company down in New Jersey, but he was a sponsor. Burton, Killington, Woodward. But join the Red Bench series. Like their YouTube channel is awesome. Like watch some of the other events. Like this is like these people who've done incredible things that live here in Vermont. The story of the Cochrans, this woman who's like traversing like the Alps and all kind, like there's so many great stories, and like this series is awesome. And they like join the museum every time you come to Stowe, stop in, say hello to those folks, take a look at this incredible array of creativity, and there's other exhibits in the museum. So if you haven't stopped by, definitely do it. And like tonight, for everybody who paid $10, thanks for the $10, but become join this thing. It costs like $60, and then every single one you're a part of it, and you're helping support the arts and the creative community in the winter sports industry. So, and Abby, who works tirelessly, thank her for putting all this together too. So great,
behind the scenes master.
And Scott, just super cool, man. Like I just when you think you know somebody, you don't. Like now I know way more about what you're up, what you've been up to.
Confusing myself on purpose. So
yeah,
more
actually, Dave Schmidt just sent me a note too. He said the Dear Rider movie producers are in March. So Dear Rider was the movie that was made on HBO about, the whole kind of arc of Burton, and especially the Jake Burton story. And Mike Cox, who was a sales rep but became very close to the family, he's going to be moderating and going to be a big part of that. So tune in for that one coming up, the Red Bench series in March, because that's going to be, that's a really powerful story. And Mike was like ground zero because he was right there with Jake through the arc of his success, but also like as he got sick and still was able to be a part of the life with the family. And it's really good. That's going to be a really inspiring one to listen in on. But anyway, Scott, your story is like incredible, and we all had a blast listening to this stuff. Part of your life, man. It's a lot of fun, man.
Trip.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you so much. Yeah, all of you guys.
There's Abby again.
Pleasure. Wait, are we done here?
Not yet.
We're gonna wrap it up unless you have parting words.
I was just gonna say, long live rock and roll. Long live David Crosby. I heard he passed away today.
Oh, wow.
Genius. Go listen to If I Can Only Remember My Name. It's one of the best albums ever. Love that guy. Okay, sorry.
What do you got, Abby, before you cut us off here?
All right. Well, an immense amount of gratitude from both of you, Scott and Chris. Thank you so much for doing this tonight. And Scott, thanks for doing this exhibit with us. It's really amazing.
Mhm.
I have the unique fortune of being able to enjoy this exhibit just about every day. And it's been up for a little over 6 weeks, and I'm still finding little treasures in Scott's work. It really takes, you can continue enjoying it over and over and over again instead of just coming and seeing it once. There's so much hidden in there. We are open Thursday through Sunday from noon to 5. So if you're in the area, I encourage you to come visit soon. If you're farther away, plan a visit. And then I also mentioned earlier that we have a limited edition water bottle from Mizu, and I'll see if I can actually show this. This is one of them. There's many colors. So that'll be in the raffle if you donate tonight. It's available in our gift shop. So come and pick one of those up. When they're gone, they're gone. And don't forget to make a donation. We're super grateful for your support, and it is necessary for us to keep going. And thank you for tuning in. I hope to see you all in the museum soon, and have a great night.
Yay. Thank you, everyone. This was fun.
That guy. Thanks, Scott.
Thank you.
All right.
See you
Good night,
soon.
folks.
Take care.
Cheers.
Pray for snow.
Yeah.